On our promo page for this professional troublemaker, Emily Sandblade, will be in studio to talk about various things, as well as one of her upcoming events that for tomorrow that we're supposed to be covering. We're going to have Rick Olson, Grokster Rick Olson, coming in to talk about gun-type stuff.
Excellent.
And at 9:15, we're going to have Americans for Prosperity's New Hampshire State Director, Greg Moore, coming in. And I love the way he put this. And Mike Rogers is back. And we want to say thank you to Grokster Susan for ably sitting in the what we call the third seat, helping us out.
The rumble seat, I think, is probably more appropriate.
Rumble seat.
She was keeping the headset warm, as she said. She was doing far more than that, as always. Really hitting it home.
So we've got about 15 minutes before our first guest comes up.
So has anybody noticed that Hillary is not just wearing pantsuits, but she's taken to wearing an orange pantsuit?
Oh, that has got to be one of the stupidest political pieces of stagecraft I have seen. Yeah,
well,
I think
some people think so.
Yeah,
Take a look at that piece of Photoshop from William Banzai 7.
So, yeah, there he is. There she is. Oops, too much of a glare. Oops, what's going on? Oh.
Any seat will do, Rick.
Can you close it?
There we go. It went dark. So there is Hillary Clinton in front of the Federal Corrections Facility. Yeah. So.
She'll be there soon enough.
Parking? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, we know. Just getting here is a nightmare, yes. Yes, it is. So.
Have a headset, Mr. Rick.
Yeah,
it's good to see you.
You've noticed the pedestrian-friendly downtown area of Concord, which has been...
They made it worse with a farmer's market down by the State House.
Yeah.
But by which means they make it so friendly for pedestrians that none of the pedestrians can get there to get out of their cars.
Right, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It's a disaster.
This is like a apparatchik / Bernie Sanders run project,
Yeah.
Swear to God.
I think Bernie Sanders would do better. This was apparatchiks.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is...
The central planner's messed up.
Yeah. I mean, old Bernie could at least run a campaign.
Yeah.
He's running circles around Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here we go again with the central plan. This has been a topic of both mirth and disgust the last few weeks here, Rick, that... How many times have we seen this in our lifetimes where, quote-unquote, the central planners, the so-called smart people...
The smart people.
...have decided that, well, the way things were when there wasn't much planning, where you had all these apartments, people living above the storefronts, we can't have that. This needs to be a commercial area, so they got rid of that. And then they decided...
Hey, we're gonna restart the show.
We're going to restart?
Yeah, just hold that thought. Trust me, everything's all screwed up this morning. We'll be right back. Hang on. I'm sorry. I apologize. Da-da-da-da-da.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALk. Susan's laugh.
All right, we want to welcome our The Rock NHCR.com listeners. Having all kinds of technical issues this morning, and I'm bringing the show in twice. For those of you who are already on the program, thank you for being patient. Nothing started right this morning as far as the sound on my system. Normally we would have 5 minutes of ads and promos, and then we would start the actual show. But because of the way things were all screwed up, and I don't even have a clock to go by on my desktop at the moment because that didn't start either. But we're here, and just to recap for the people who just joined us, today our guests are going to be Greg Moore, Emily Sandblade, Rick Olson is already here, and John Lieber from Thumbtack.com will be joining us. Mike Rogers is back at the end of the table, and we're happy to have him back. Thank you again to Susan Olson for filling in his absence. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We are on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, we are now streaming live on TheRockNHCR.com. Just barely this morning. It almost didn't work, but we managed to get it together.
You stream in YouTube.
We're up at GraniteGrok.com, which is another great place to listen to the program. And once again, quarter after, we're going to talk to Greg Moore about the governor's budget. And then we're going to have Rick in to talk about some things like bag searches at movie theaters and some other fun stuff like that. And then Emily Sandblade's going to join us to talk about the Goffstown Republican event that's coming up and some other fun stuff because Emily is a troublemaker and we like it. So,
yes, after all, we are rabble-rousing, freedom-loving blog site. Rabble-rousing. We cause trouble.
Yes, we do.
And for all the right reasons and to all the right people who deserve to be rabbled.
Indeed.
And roused.
Yeah.
Rabbled and roused.
Rabbled
and rabble.
Is Greg Moore not, in fact, in Cleveland, Ohio?
He is in Cleveland, Ohio, yes. He is at the AFP event with Kimberly Morin, who's there also.
Excellent.
I couldn't attend because it's a bad time of year for me.
Me too.
Wife going back to work, kids going back to school, lots of things going on. And I told him, I said, you have got to tell them to stop scheduling these events right when the school year ends and right when the school year starts. Because I can't go.
Mike Chicchio had extended an invitation to me, but I had a procedure, so I couldn't go.
A procedure?
Well, yeah, one of those things you automatically get when you're 50. Your doctor says, you got to not eat for 24 hours and drink this gallon of stuff,
Oh, the first time I had to do that, yuck.
Yep.
And then they offered me the alternative. Take these pills, and it's nowhere near as bad. It's only 3% of the pain and the crap that you finally get. I don't want to drink this stuff anymore. I'm going to throw up. And then the results come back and go, I couldn't tell anything. You should have taken the other one. Well, gee, thanks, Dad, for Doc, for giving me the option. You gave me the option. Why are you mad at me?
And the actual procedure itself is not a problem. It's the preparation for the procedure that's a nightmare.
It's not eating for 24 hours.
Oh, that's easy.
Anybody looking at me knows that's a challenge. and then drinking that solution, it's like drinking baking soda and water, basically.
Well, did they tell you to use like Gatorade or something, mix it in?
Oh, yeah, but you know what? Overlip through the gums,
Well, you're drinking 64 ounces of fluid or 120 ounces of fluid with this, stuff in it over the course of 2 hours. And that's all you're drinking. And you just want to throw up, really.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It
the last
blows you.
45 minutes is like...
Yeah, so, I get there, I have the procedure. It was nice. They... they put you under, and next thing you know, you wake up and they go, all done. So I could deal with that part of it.
Yeah, that's
the drugs
easy.
drugs are great.
Yeah, it's like you start seeing double and you go, time for me to go nighty-night. And I hear the nurse going, yep, okay, just roll over. Thank you.
Roll over on your left side.
Yes. So, anyways, it's nice to have you here.
This isn't normally what we talk about.
I've been busy nuts, just crazy.
Yeah, you've been putting in, you're wearing your hat, Londonderry Fishing Game. You're putting in a long range.
200, 400-yard range. It's under construction.
Cool.
We're doing rock crushing right now because we just got all the blasting done.
Uh-oh.
$92,000 worth.
Hang on a second.
Ooh.
Those are cool videos, by the way.
I bet, yeah.
We videoed the blasts, yeah.
Put them on YouTube. We'll take them.
Yeah, we need to put them on Granite Rocks.
Oh, they're right on the Londonderry Fishing Game Club Facebook page. They're awesome,
Okay. Let us know which one is better than the others.
The most recent one is the best because what we did was the drilling company drilled a whole bunch of holes, and then they used 14,000 pounds of explosives.
Oh.
And it was pretty epic. I mean, have you ever seen rocks as big as basketballs fly in the air about 100 feet? That's cool.
It must have been like some of the coal mines, the open pit coal mines, or some of the other mining operations where you just see the boom, 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 and then everything going, and then everything going, blump.
That was the one last blast we got all the calls from the cranky neighbors. Because their windows shook or their houses shook.
So you saved the best till last, right?
Absolutely.
Little bump here, little bump there, and then ba-boom.
And among that mix, there's always that one woman. You tell her what it was. You're only there was just the one blast. This isn't something we regularly do, and she's still at you going neep 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 neep. So you just tell her, look, you get over it with time, medication, and counseling. That's all I have for you, lady. Sorry. Watch your fingers. I'm hanging up the phone. That's the end of that.
Nice, nicely done. We can always depend on you.
You can only take that stuff for so long, right?
Oh yeah, it's after a while it's like nails on the chalkboard. You've made your point. I get you're upset. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I don't know how to.
You've made your point, and it won't happen again. Goodbye.
I can't mollify you.
And the whole thing is, for those of you who are out there going, what is he talking about? Londonderry Fishing Game is probably one of the biggest and certainly the best run. I would say it's for the complainers.
Or complainers. We know how to manage complainers, yeah.
Yeah, gun clubs in New Hampshire. It is near some You were there, and then
we
the
were
population...
there first.
And
the population came after.
Right, and they could keep complaining about it over and over and over again.
And that's in spite of the fact you've got a pretty big buffer zone around you. The road winds its way in about a half mile through trees and under a power line before it gets to the club.
On the face of it, it seems logical. People are like, well, you guys were there first, but think about this. You got to think of it from the homeowner's point of view.
Yep.
You buy a house, okay, and... you're trying to have a barbecue or a kid's birthday party and there's gunfire going off, right? So I don't think the argument really matters to those people that we were there first. That doesn't, there's a certain solipsism that goes with buying a house near a shooting range. If you buy at the closing, they give you a bag of solipsism. Because when you say, "Hey, look, we've been here 63 years," it's boom, that's gone. It doesn't even register.
Well, this is like the people who move into the flight paths of the
airports.
airports.
Yeah, or near pig farms. Yep.
Oh, the same thing.
Or chicken farms.
Yeah. Folks, this existed before you moved here. You failed to do your due diligence. If you didn't want to put up with the smells from the pigs or the chickens, and you didn't want the fireworks, or you didn't want the gunfire, or you didn't want the big old jets, you should have looked a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, you can excuse the airport things a little bit if the airport expands big, like Heathrow did in the 50s and 60s, and they soundproofed all the houses.
The interesting thing...
Okay. We're going to take a break. We're going to call Greg, and everybody stay tuned. We're going to be right back and make sure this works. Who knows? The way this is going, it might not.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
Rock Talk. Rock Talk.
We're almost back on all cylinders. We're getting close. No, you're turned down, remember? Because you told me to turn you down.
Yeah.
Welcome to Grok Talk. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy. Mike Rogers is back. Yay, Mike. I'll turn your microphone on. And
even if I'm lucky, I even get to talk.
You get to talk. You've been doing more talking than me, right? Rick Olson is here also. But we don't want to talk about us. We want to talk about our guest, who is calling us from the distant land of Ohio. Greg Moore, welcome to the show.
At Defending the Dream Summit, where we wish we were, but we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, well...
I'll tell you, we're having a great time at the Defending Dream Summit. We've got a great delegation from New Hampshire, including one of the Groksters with Kim Morin is out here having a great time. If you're not following her on social media, she's tweeting up a storm. She's Facebooking up a storm. And she's having a blast out here with a great group of folks from the Granite State. I tell you, a lot of people spend their time focusing on all the great speakers. We had John Taffer from Bar Rescue. We had Jim Jordan, who's the head of the Freedom Caucus in the House of Representatives, did a great job speaking. And we also heard from a couple folks we see in New Hampshire a lot. We had Governor Bush. And I got to tell you what, if you didn't see Bobby Jindal's speech at the Defending the Dream Summit, I'm telling you, it's the best 20 minutes of your day today if you go and look that up. Look up Bobby Jindal Defending the Dream Summit. He absolutely lit the place on fire. Did a fantastic job, and I got to tell you, the crowd just went wild. So one more day today, Governor Perry, got Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Ted Cruz, as well as a few other dignitaries. For those who want to follow on live stream, just go to defendingthedream.com. It's a great event. About 3,600 activists from across the country, all 50 states are here, having a great time. But it's not so much about that. It really is that everyone pays attention to the general session, the beginning part of the day, where there's actual trainings and teaching activists the best tools of the trade, so that when they go back to their home states, including the folks from New Hampshire come back, they actually are better equipped to fight for liberty and fight for freedom. And I got to tell you what, the folks I've been talking to, our folks are saying the same thing, which is, you know what, I like the session, I like the speeches. Of course, we're a little spoiled because we can get most of these folks in New Hampshire anytime we want, right? But they're saying it's really the trainings that are the best part of it for them. There's a training about how to communicate with millennials, training on how to message Obamacare. Stuff like that is absolutely fantastic and absolutely essential to getting these people to get more engaged and more active. And I'm thrilled to be part of this great event.
Greg, there's always a main theme to all of these major events that AFP puts on. What is the theme for this year's Defending the Dream?
Well, first and foremost, it's our fundamental opportunity to thank all of our activists who put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. But generally speaking, our main theme is getting back to the focus of limited government that's being taken away from us. I know it sounds like a really broad theme, and it is, because everyone has their own way of viewing how that is being taken away from us. So I'll tell you this much: we really take the opportunity in this year to focus on building. How do we build infrastructure? How do we continue to develop those tools in the community and get more people involved? We have 3,600 people here this year. They said that's fine. We want 5,000 here next year. And it probably won't be in Ohio, maybe somewhere else. But I'll tell you what, we're going to have an even bigger event next year, and the idea is to keep this thing growing and growing and growing. And hopefully the Groksters will be down at the Defending Dream Summit next year to see it firsthand.
Right. And in fact, one of the themes of your opening sequence was the torchbearers igniting the fight for liberty and increasing your carbon footprint. That's correct, right?
Well, you know what? If we're going to make a little extra carbon in order to bring freedom to the country, it's well worth it.
Now, one quick question. It came out this week that the U.S.'s standing of economic freedom.
Can you move that away from your mouth just a little bit?
Just a little bit. Okay. How's that?
The index of economic freedom?
Yes, we have now dropped to about 20th. We used to be in the top 3, and over the last 8 years, and we know who's been in charge over the last 8 years, has that been talked about at all by anybody so far?
Not in the general session. It's something we've certainly been discussing in places like the Bloggers Lounge and in some of the economic freedom trainings. You're talking about the Fraser Institute, which is based in Canada. They actually do a listing every year of measuring economic freedom, and the Fraser Institute does a great job of this. Back in 2000, I know 2000 we were coming at the very tail end of the Clinton administration, but we'd actually made a lot of progress in a number of different areas. With definitely a free market oriented U.S. House and somewhat less free market oriented U.S. Senate, but the U.S. was ranked third. And in some cases, I think we even got as high as number 2. But the 2 countries we were behind were Singapore and Hong Kong. Those aren't really countries; they're more city-states at that point. And so I don't know that you can look at them the same way you do a broad, diverse economy like a full-fledged country. So among the larger countries, U.S. was number 1 in the world. And you're right, we've now fallen way down, behind places, not just like places you might think that have embraced free markets, like Switzerland, places that like Canada, which is more free market than we are, places like Chile. But now we're falling behind countries like Norway. This is a Scandinavian socialist-oriented country. We're falling behind them. I think that's a really disappointing.
Make sure you use a capital S when you say socialist in Scandinavia.
That's right. That's right. No, and they admit it. They'll be the first people to admit it. And when we're falling behind countries like that, there's a fundamental problem. We need to completely reevaluate where we're going and get back to where we were, just 15 years ago.
Well,
right, and it began before the current administration. The Congress that we had in the 2000s wasn't great, and then we got the Democrats in 2006. So we've had a pretty long period of decline.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't. It's not a partisan issue. Since 2000, we have seen a massive expansion of government under both Democrats and Republicans. And from our perspective, it's about free markets. We fight for ideas. We like to say we're about the what, not the who. But at the end of the day, we have to hold everybody accountable, regardless of whether they have a D, an R, or an S after their name. In the case of Senator Bernie Sanders. We have to hold them all accountable, and that's one of the reasons why the Defending Dreams Summit is so critical, and why we as an organization want to make sure we equip our activists, because we can't do it all alone as far as the staff. The staff works their tail off. I can't tell you how thankful I am for the AFP New Hampshire staff and the level of activity and work they put in, but we can't do it on our own. We need to have people, the volunteers, the activists, the people who are willing to make phone calls, knock on doors, reach out to their congressman or their state rep or their state senator, and say, listen, this has to change. You can't get in the way of progress. Right now, as many of you guys know, we have a TV ad we're running holding Governor Hassan accountable for opposing business tax at a time when we have the third highest business tax rate in the country. We're saying, look, it's time for you to understand that we have to put our economy first and stop putting growing government as your number one metric.
Hey, Greg, quick question for you. At this summit, is the focus primarily on business and taxes, or all concepts that are sacred to those of us that are freedom-minded?
Listen, I mean, Americans for Prosperity exists to expand economic freedom.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about our core elements of that message, getting government out of people's lives. We say this all the time. AFP's mission, AFP exists to try to allow people to live their own American dream in the way that they choose, not the way the government chooses, but the way they choose. And that means giving them their money back. It means giving them their authority back to spend their money the way they want. It means keeping government off their back in terms of regulating them. And of course, it means you have to have a responsibly sized government that lives within its means and doesn't take any more from the citizens than it has to. And I think that's really what we're focusing on. Property rights, that's another important element. Healthcare, getting your healthcare choices back. Education, getting education choices back to the locals so that they can make the decisions that are best for their community. And those are the things we fight for every day with Americans for Prosperity.
And isn't that perhaps why Bobby Jindal resonated so much? Because he was on all of those themes yesterday. And the conference call he had afterwards echoed some of those.
Well, I didn't get a chance to hear his conference call, but we were probably listening to John Taffer from Bar Rescue at the time. But I'll tell you this much: Bobby Jindal just absolutely lit the room on fire. It was unbelievable the response he got from the crowd. He moved across a whole host of issues. He spoke. He brought it. I'll tell you this much: he brought it yesterday on his speech. It set a high bar for Senator Cruz. I mean, everyone thinks going in that Senator Cruz is a fantastically gifted orator, that he's going to be able to really get the crowd rocking. But I'll tell you this much: he's had the bar set higher for him after Governor Jindal's speech.
That's great to hear.
Oh, sorry.
Steve?
Yeah, we were going to talk about the governor's budget.
Yeah.
So.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The fact that we don't have one. The governor's continuing resolution.
And the good news, we're saving money every day, Steve. So I think it's important to remember that every day that goes on that doesn't have a budget, the taxpayers are actually saving money. So, in a way, I'm kind of like, well, let's see how long we. But from our perspective, there are some important elements that are critical to getting New Hampshire's long-term growth problem resolved. And one of the biggest ones we have is having a competitive business tax culture. Right now, small businesses need tax relief. And the governor proposed a plan when she said, hey, listen, I'm going to agree to a certain amount of business tax relief, but I'm going to hammer small businesses along the way. I don't understand why you say, listen, we're going to make the state more competitive. With one hand, but on the other hand, say we're going to annihilate our small businesses with a regime of terror laid out by our tax collectors to try to pummel hardworking small business owners to make their life miserable. It just makes no sense whatsoever. The bottom line is it's great to have big business. You know, every big business job is just as good as a small business job. Don't get me wrong. Thrilled to have all of them, but the small business is really what makes New Hampshire special, and historically has really been how New Hampshire has thrived. It's those small businesses that have the opportunity to grow from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. That's really where we see our job growth in our state, and it makes no sense to say, okay, we're going to start dropping the hammer on those types of businesses. The governor needs to say, listen, you're going to have to push back against the liberals who are coming after you and saying we need more government. We need more government. And you know what? I got to tell you one thing.
I actually got to cut you off, Greg, because we got like 10 seconds left. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. Short
Absolutely.
segment.
Thanks so much. We'll have a great time in Columbus. DefendingTheDream.com. Watch it. There's a great general session starting about 1 o'clock today.
All right. Take it easy. We'll see you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The 603 Alliance held its second training seminar on Tuesday, August 11, 2015 at St. Anselm's Institute of Politics, and despite the heavy storms throughout the area, the turnout was fantastic. After introductions and a brief overview of who the 603 Alliance and CVL New Hampshire LLC are, the training focused on the first in the state 603 Grassroots Presidential Caucus to be held on Saturday, October 17, 2015 at the Hopkinton Fairgrounds. Procedures for the caucus were discussed, and a call to action for volunteers to help on event day was met with great enthusiasm. Almost everyone volunteered to help, and thanks to our wonderful friends from Massachusetts who have offered their assistance as caucus marshals. If you could not make the training seminar this week but would like to volunteer your time, please download the GPS Caucus sign-up form available at 603alliance.org. There are instructions on the site for where to send the form.
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALk.
Great thing to do on camera.
Yeah,
yes,
but I didn't do it on the air. Didn't do it on the air. Welcome
yes,
to GrokTALk.
you did it on the air, Steve.
I went. You like talking when I don't have your microphone on. Go ahead.
And this time Steve wasn't even pretending to mime the introduction.
I was not. I was not doing anything. I was just happy that everything appears to be working on my desktop now. I'm back in my comfort zone. My GrokTALK paradigm has been reestablished. So welcome back to the show. Welcome to our rocknhcr.com listeners. And we are live streaming. Hopefully, I won't know until I talk to the proprietor later and find out if it actually worked. But we were trying some things. Try to get, we were posting the show, and then he was rebroadcasting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then again on Monday. They have since picked up the Gerard at Large show. They're going to be broadcasting him 3 days a week. So mornings weren't available for us anymore, which is fine because I'm happy to see Mr. Richard Rick. What
Gerard.
am I going to say? Richard Gerard. Mr. Gerard has more audience, which is amazing. So we were shuffling things around, and he was like, "Well, you use iTunes?" And I go, "Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know a lot of the other side of this. I know the front side, but not the back side." So he's like, "Well, we need to find a way to get the stream, and we can just broadcast you live." And I was like, "Yes, let's figure that out." So I'm poking around Spreaker trying to figure out where my RSS feed is and where the codes are and all this other garbage. And I sent him this thing, and I said, "Try this." And he says, "All right," and we're trying it. He said, "It looks good." So hopefully we're on the air.
That's
cool.
With
them. But
and Rick Olson is still with us, and now we're not going to discuss procedures. We're going to discuss guns and stuff.
Yeah, the big news this week in the land of guns, I guess. Well, there's always lots of news, and there's always lots of. To get the real news, you got to get away from the actual news and dig around. But the story that caught our attention was bag searches at Regal Cinemas.
Regal Cinemas now has a policy whereby they are going to search bags, but what's important about this policy is not necessarily the bag search, but the fact that one party is getting searched and the other isn't.
Do tell.
Well, it's like on its face, it's bag searches. So if you have a diaper bag with you, if you have a purse, maybe guys that have backpacks, but I know a lot of guys that go to the movies and they don't bring backpacks. So in fact, going to the movies, I've never seen anybody with a backpack, unless they're up to no good. I don't know. But, guys don't get searched. Women get searched. That's how the policy operates.
Of course, they'd hate us.
It's much
walking
more.
in.
It's much more hideous than its intent, because the intent is to keep weapons and dangerous people out of their theater. So, I mean, there's lots of people that are.
They're
going
not doing
to the
pat
movies.
downs, though.
What's that?
They're not doing pat downs.
Not doing pat downs.
So
nope.
anybody who's carrying concealed would get in anyway.
Exactly.
So it's a stupid policy.
So let's just hang on a minute. How many of the recent mass shootings have been carried out by women with diaper bags?
0.
Correct.
Yeah.
They'll be putting in full body scanners pretty soon, and
right.
the movies will just be another reason not to go.
Oh, body scanners. Did you see that the TSA's body scanners are 96% failure rates?
And don't work worth a damn except for the outline of the women you're looking at.
So apparently what Regal Cinemas needs to implement is a douchebag search policy.
Right. Exactly. Well, the interesting thing behind all of this is Regal Cinemas, they had this backlash on all their social media, their Twitter, their Facebook pages, okay? This is a time and era when they can least afford to be alienating any portion of their customer base, okay? Because you have a lot of options, Hulu, Netflix. I mean, I have accounts on Hulu, Netflix,
nobody's
Amazon Prime.
Nobody's searching me at the Red Box.
Yeah, Redbox, beautiful. Yeah,
and people have bigger and bigger screens, cheaper and cheaper at home, and they don't need to go to a cinema to get a big viewing angle.
Exactly. The movie comes out in theaters, and then all of a sudden, 2-3 months later, you're getting it on Redbox or even on Comcast On Demand, and it's cheaper too. If you buy a couple of movie tickets and you let them shake you down at the concessions for $8 for a bag of popcorn and $6 for a drink this big, I mean you're out $50 right there automatically. Easily $50.
If I take my whole family just tickets, it's going to run me $50-$60.
Absolutely.
Just to get in the door.
Yep. So I mean you can forego that. You can go to Comcast and you can push a button and you pay $3.99. $4.99 for one movie, and the whole family's watching. You make your own damn popcorn,
Yeah.
And they can. The bottom line is they doubled down on their policy, which shocked me, because I think we're seeing, because of them and things like this, I think we're seeing the beginning of the end. I mean, not theaters in general, but there's going to be some transformation, because I don't see how they can economically sustain themselves with the backlash they had.
No, and it's both fortunate and unfortunate. I think the technology is certainly a disruptive force, just like the internet. I mean, everything is internet-driven, and you're seeing the turning of upside down of almost every single business model there is. Music certainly has been destroyed, the old-time music industry.
Sure.
You're seeing the movies being destroyed as well. Believe it or not, there haven't been that many blockbusters lately as compared to previous years.
Yeah.
But you're right. This time period during the year is one of their biggest profit times. The next one is Christmas time.
Yep.
And if you're right. This is the age of convenience. Unfortunately, as I wrote last night, it's the age of me. And if you're going to inconvenience me, just like you were sputtering coming in, because you haven't been here since they tore up the main street out here in Concord. I mean, it's just absolutely
You missed
nuts.
it when it was our side of the street.
Oh. The central planners doth not do well.
They have central planners at this Regal Cinemas place too.
Have you noticed the 2-hour parking limit? One wonders how many of us would get tickets.
Yeah. But they, the cinemas. You're right. All it takes is a few percentage of people who say, "I'm no longer a customer," and there goes their profit margin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how much for popcorn? $44.95.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of
pedestrian
overhead.
zones that no pedestrians can get to unless they already live there are simply not going to work. You'll notice that the flagman, being smart, relocated his business to the back of the block, letting some upscale yuppie salon take over the space.
Vaping.
Yeah.
Which is a nice term.
There's no bag search going in there, though.
No.
Right. But, the interesting thing overall is these people that make these knee-jerk reactionary decisions, there's one small thing they're not looking at. For example, is they're seeking to maintain the status quo, i.e. the gun-free movie theater, the gun-free zone. The gun-free zone in America is not going to die easily. It's going to die kicking and screaming. At some point, we got to light it on fire. Because
it doesn't work and it's more dangerous.
Right. There is one common thread for all of these mass shootings, no matter where they were. They were gun-free zones.
What I'd like to see.
There was no defenders there.
What I'd like to see is one cinema chain say, "We welcome concealed carry owners."
Use judicious marksmanship, please.
Yeah. Aim carefully.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there have been a number of restaurants who have done exactly that. I mean, it was sort of a hit kind of deal where all the waitresses were open carrying. They said, exactly what you said. We welcome gun owners, open or concealed. Judicious aim is appreciated.
Yep.
And like we call ourselves, we are the safest podcast here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And we would be Regal's nightmare because we do carry either openly or concealed. But again, here's the deal. They're discriminating against lawful use. We all know the power of the weapons that we carry, open or concealed. We understand the ramifications if we actually had to use them. This is not... because
not use, just unholster.
Yeah.
The minute you do this, you are committing to a set of circumstances that are going to cause you an SHIT storm, because just touching it in a room full of people in the state of New Hampshire, of all places, is grounds for inviting the police to come and say you were threatening, you were all kinds of... I mean, you've really got to be in a circumstance where it's necessary before you draw your weapon.
Yeah, and we all understand that. We know that. We read about it all the time. Mm-hmm. We also know that the defense of gun use has prevented lots of stuff, regardless of what the anti-gunners have said. But we're treated as pariahs for simply using our constitutional rights.
It's an important aspect to point out. Like every now, I stopped wasting my time arguing with anti-gun people. You know why? Because we've won, they've lost. That's the bottom line. If we go back to 1981, maybe 8 states had a concealed carry, some form of law that allowed for concealed carry. Today, 44, 45 states. And then you top onto that, 7 or 8 states are passing constitutional carry where you don't even have to get a license. Concealed, open carry, or what have you.
And more of those 44 than not have shall issue rather than may issue.
Right. And then on top of that, we had a 20-year period where purchase of and ownership of guns tripled while crime got cut more than in half. So, and then you have all the anti-gun groups spending all kinds of money for gun control. They outspend the pro-gun groups 7-1, and they still lose. What does that tell you? And then that Pew Research poll that came out several months ago, even more people now believe that you're safer if you own a handgun in the home. And then finally, to top it all off, Show me a nation anywhere around this globe, this crumbling rock, that has anything that resembles the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. They don't. So when people say, "Well, Europe," no, don't talk about Europe. It's not a paradigm. It's not apples to orange. It's not apples to apples.
And they still have mass shooting and no way to prevent them.
Switzerland. Everybody says, "Oh, Switzerland, machine gun in the house." Switzerland has gun control. Switzerland doesn't have a Second Amendment. Okay, they still have laws about handguns and other guns. The whole gun in the home thing is all about how they defend themselves because they do not have a standing military.
Right.
That's that.
Well, I have to ask you this, Rick, because yes, a great deal of gain has been had because of the enforcement of the plain language of the Constitution.
Sure.
But then you go out to a place like Seattle,
right,
where they have just applied a $25 tax per gun.
Mm-hmm.
They have put a nickel a round tax on all ammunition within the city limits. And they were expecting to raise $300,000 to be applied for anti-violence programs and, if somebody gets injured in such a gunfight.
Is everybody shopping outside the city?
Well, that's it. There was 2 gun stores in Seattle. They presented their economics, and they said, we will either be forced to either close up completely or we'll move outside of Seattle. You're not going to see this wealth of money coming in, and you're still going to have everyking else.
Well, despite our victories and where we at culturally with guns, you're always going to have those municipalities run amok. Seattle, it's got to be one of the biggest moonbat capitals in the U.S.
Pretty close.
What good can be said about Seattle? A place where it rains all the time, has one of the highest suicide rates in the United States. I'd be depressed living in Seattle.
I know somebody who moved here from Seattle, and she was a teacher in Seattle a long time ago, and I asked her, I said, what's it like? I mean, what's the deal? She said it's always cloudy and rainy. She says, very depressing. She says people kill themselves all the time because it's just, there's no sun. It's not, and there, people are like, oh, well, it's the guns. No, it's the weather, damn it.
Yeah, look at Kurt Cobain, guy with a wind tunnel where his head used to be.
Yeah,
I mean...
And he had some chemical assistance with regard to that, and he was trying to get around it's so sad here. But it is
one of the most miserable races on the planet are the Welsh.
Yeah,
which
because
is,
they live...
which is the left half of Great Britain, which is a bump that sticks out in the Irish Sea. It's mountainous, and like Ireland, it's kind of green because it rains all the freaking time. The hilltops are shrouded in clouds.
Yep.
As far as I know, even the sheep are miserable.
Yeah, they have that winter syndrome all year round.
Depressed sheep.
Yeah, depressed sheep. Well, all right, okay, wait. You have something important to ask, and we have to take a break. But on depressed sheep, I mean, how can we not go on a break on depressed sheep? Sheep. Slow down, Steve. Slow down. All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK. GrokTALk.
Having conversations during the break. Welcome back to GrokTALK. I am Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Richard Olson Jr., H. Olson Jr. joined us. He may regale us with some foreign language skills. He met Governor Chris Christie. Hold it, I got to turn your mic on. He met Governor Chris Christie. We're going to talk about that, but Skip had something he wanted to say.
Well, in addition to all the bad weather in Seattle and what they're doing with the guns, but they have the first openly socialist city councilor member.
Yeah.
That I just thought it was just great, because here she is advocating for $15 an hour minimum wage, but then her organization only wanted to pay $12 or something to actually do graphics work and stuff like that. These people just don't get themselves.
No, I'll bet you guys did know this little factoid. You know, Concord has the purple Barney bags that you pay $1 for. You know, pay as you throw. Mm-hmm. All the articles we've done on that, and Concord has it. Well, guess what? When you take one of those bags and you put more stuff into it than it can reasonably hold, and you stomp on it. You know what that's called?
What?
The Seattle Stomp. Yeah, if you go back to one of my blog posts from a few years ago, I actually have a graphic in there of the Seattle Stomp. It has a hippie jumping on a garbage bag, So, Seattle is great for bringing culture like that to New Hampshire, the Granite State, because when you have one of these little people out here with their purple bags, and they put 10 pounds of doo-doo in a 5-pound bag, that's called the Seattle Stomp,
And one hopes it doesn't split.
Exactly. Yeah, do they make you pay more money if you give them a split bag?
I don't know. And statistically, we'd expect the purple bags to weigh more than an equivalent black bag that you weren't being taxed for.
Right, exactly.
There's always a way around the systems, and it goes back to what you said earlier, Rick, of the central planners believe that things will stay status quo, that people will not adapt their behavior given the newer rules, that they can plan exactly, everything will go according to that plan.
The perfect central planner is somebody who has no idea what human nature is.
That's right.
None whatsoever.
It's like
or they don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
It's like the static tax costing schemes, where they always expect to get more revenue when they raise taxes, and they're shocked when it barely changes.
By the way, Haggie Masson couldn't be with us today. We're still waiting. We will get her on the program and start a regular segment. We now want to go. Rick met Governor Christie.
I met Governor Christie.
One-on-one.
Yep. Now, Governor Christie I got a personal invite from former United States Attorney Thomas Colantuno. So that was kind of nice to get that invite. Tom called me up and said, hey, you want to meet Governor Christie? You're the Second Amendment guy. So I figured, so I went to this town hall meeting in New Boston at Molly Stark Tavern on Route 13. And Christie did a question and answer. He spent a whole hour calling on people. They were allowed to ask questions. He could give answers. Pretty nice venue, no tinfoil hat folks showed up and threw them wingers or anything like that, but it was pretty cool. But nobody there asked. They asked about illegal immigration, taxes, Obamacare. They talked about all these things, and one of the points Christie made was lawlessness. This is a lawless administration, so they went on talking about, but nobody ever asked a question about the Second Amendment or guns. So I thought this is perfect, because I'm going to get an opportunity. I got to meet Chris Christie. I got to chat with him one-on-one. I told him where I was coming from. I'm a Second Amendment guy here in New Hampshire, and I haven't decided who I'm going to vote for. And I'm here today because I want to provide as many candidates as possible with a cultural insight as to how we go about guns and Second Amendment in New Hampshire, and talk about what's passionate to us and what we're passionate about. And he thought, he said his response was, I think you'll like, I have a good record on guns. You'll like my record. And I thought about that, and I went, But anyways, we talked about other stuff. I got to talk to him for about 5 minutes on a one-on-one level. And I got to tell you, as a person, I like Chris Christie. Good guy, really warm, approachable guy. And here's the other thing about Christie. You know how he can be abrupt sometimes and really terse? That's another quality I like about Christie, because he'll look you right in the eye and he'll say something you absolutely disagree with. But at least he respects you enough to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I'm not coming here today to say Chris Christie is my guy. I got to meet the guy. I got to chat with him. And you know what? As a human being, I really like him. Wife, very nice lady, very nice family. Mm-hmm. So at some point in time, his scheduler is going to set up a time where I can sit down one-on-one, talk with him for about an hour, talk about the Second Amendment and guns and New Hampshire and what that means and why that's important and the so-called faux assault weapons ban that took place and how some are going to push. I got a big agenda set up, so I'm looking forward to that very meeting in the next couple of weeks here.
Don't forget when you get these encounters to always get the handlers to get in touch with us, because I always try and reel them in. And
sure.
We get some and we don't get others, but we try. We're always trying to reel them in, and please do what you can. We'd love to have them on here. We come one, come all.
A couple of weeks ago, I got to sit at a table with Rick Perry, and so there was only five of us.
He's pretty good on guns.
He's flawless on guns. Yeah. And then I got to meet with Scott Walker briefly. Got to chit chat with him, and he's also got a great record. Remember, he's the guy that signed the legislation that made being able to purchase guns and have guns in Wisconsin easier. You see, that's kind of a Chris Christie gun problem. He hasn't expanded draconian legislation on guns, but he hasn't done much to alleviate the issue in New Jersey as far as guns go. So I don't know.
He didn't even pardon the guy who got stuck with a gun in transit in his trunk, right?
I believe he did.
He pardoned him.
He did in the end.
And he also pardoned the woman that inadvertently went over the border from Philadelphia and got caught and was facing prison time. And so.
Quick question. Did you happen to mention Scott Brown and November to Chris Christie?
I actually did. Actually, not specifically to Chris. His chief campaign guy for the state of New Hampshire was talking to me, and we were talking about setting up a time where Chris could come to the Londonderry Fish and Game Club, meet our members, the Second Amendment community, and others. And one of the things I said, we don't have a lot of rules. We just ask that any candidate that comes accepts us just as we are. And there's only one candidate who could not do that. And he says, who is that? And I said, that was Scott Brown. And he was like, oh.
I wonder why.
Yep, so we had that conversation.
Did Walt Havenstein ever come and pay you a visit?
Nope.
No, I'm not surprised.
Now, you got to understand.
We got a professional troublemaker joining us.
In these conversations with all these different handlers, they tend to, like Walt Havenstein, Scott Brown, your establishment sort of candidates, it's hit or miss whether or not they're going to show up and visit us. Most of the time, they don't. They ignore us. We're the little people. We're the flyovers to them.
Yeah. Didn't you notice though recently that Walt Havenstein was out there endorsing Chris Christie, and hasn't he perhaps considered that's not an asset?
Where is he endorsing him from? That's what I want to know. Is it Maryland or New Hampshire? I mean, that's a fair question, is it not? He come up here, he run for governor.
Yeah.
Now I'm Walt Havenstein from Maryland, and I'm endorsing Governor Chris Christie. There's a lot to be said for that. But I'm not being unfair when I say that either. But we've gotten some reach outs from Donald Trump camp. We've gotten some folks reaching out, to come for a visit at the Londonderry Fish and Game Club.
I'm just laughing because after last night, you're going to have to put the whole crowd on your brand new 200, 400 yard range to fit them all in.
Absolutely.
Did he tell you? Did he tell you we're gonna try to raffle off shots at the Eye of Sauron?
Oh, really?
On a 200 yard range.
That ought to be fun.
Put a little page boy wig on it, give it a bit one eyelash, turn it on, armor up a laptop off the side, and for a donation we'll let you shoot the thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to record it.
Yeah,
it won't be high speeds, but it'll just be there, and then it won't.
Right.
Yeah, it's starting to die, and we're looking for donations for a new couple of cameras for close-up web streaming.
Oh, cool!
And
awesome.
but yeah, it's the Eye of Sauron has given us years of service, and the taking apart and putting together, it's just wearing out the connectors, and it doesn't always respond the way it's supposed to. Like right now, I see that it's streaming, but it
you never know.
I got a little blue screen in front of me, but I can see the broadcast going out.
It could be here now. In 5 minutes, it's done. We don't know. So we got a couple more minutes before we bring Emily on. Hi.
Hi there.
How you doing? So what is coming up that's hot in the land of Londonderry Fish and Game, or
September 20th, we are having the famous pumpkin chunking at the Londonderry Fish and Game Club. We're going to have a pig roast in conjunction with that. That one's an NRA ILA event, so
politics.
They're asking to put out a little bit of coin for that. I think it's $250 a couple. But we just had a pig roast and National Rifle Association AR Challenge, and that was an event. The entry fee was only $50, but the money was spent we did that to raise money for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So I don't know what the final numbers are, but we raised some money for them, and that was spearheaded by Bob Cormier. So that worked out really well, and we are we have just a plethora of classes that we're offering. I'm going to be doing a class next month, or later part of this month, called Handgun 1, 2, 3. And what that is if there are folks out there that have absolutely no experience with guns other than what they've seen on TV, we'll get them in, we'll educate them, we'll show them how to hold a handgun, how to operate a handgun. It's a non-shooting class. In other words, we teach them the very basics. And then one of the other voids this particular class fills is people go and they take NRA's basic handgun class, and they really are not prepared to take that class. They don't have some of the basic things, so this class will prepare them for that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And this is all on one big day, right? You're putting all that stuff in one day?
Oh, no, it's on our schedule, LondonderryFishingGameClub.org.
Okay.
Schedule of events.
Right.
It's all different days. And then, of course, we're doing our construction on our 200, 400-yard range, and that's coming right along. We did a lot of nifty blasting, and now we got a rock crushing company in there crushing all it and taking the material out because they can use it. And we dodge a $150,000 change order by not having that happen.
So, excellent.
Totally awesome win-win. They get free material, we get removed.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing all that with us. We're going to come back in a few seconds, actually about 5 minutes, with Emily Sandblade. We're going to talk about some stuff having to do with Goffstown Republican event that's coming up. That's a pretty exciting thing. And after that, we have John Lieber, the chief economist from Thumbtack.com. He's going to talk about their small business survey, and that's pretty much going to be what happens. You stay tuned. We will be right. I'm waiting. 3, 2, 1, go. Bye.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK. GrokTALk.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALk.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Flashback.
We will have to talk to the proprietor of the office space and go, which hole do we use?
Yeah, I hate it when you have to say that. The
We should go back, I think, so talking of college, to the scheme whereby not only do the parents help their kids, but there are no government subsidies, and let the colleges compete for the best kids by offering scholarships to those that are the best kids.
That's crazy talk.
There's Steve, always with the smart remark.
That'd work, too. That's why they won't do it. It'll work. You know, at their core. I mean, society can scope.
Right, so about 3 squirrels ago.
GraniteGrok.com is a product of GraniteGrok.com. GrokTALK is a product of GraniteGrok.com.
I just love this idea of how they're going to go to a bourbon festival or several bourbon festivals in Kentucky, because that's where the young people go. So first we'll get them drunk, and then we'll hook them onto Obamacare. What a country!
As the old Russian poet Pushkin said, where there is a trough, there will be pigs.
I tell you what, you guys have a great sense of humor. I mean, no matter how much ribbon I do, even that airbrush marine you have there, no matter how much ribbon I give you guys always come back for more, and you're always polite. And, you know, I go to the liberal websites where I have a lot of fun haranguing them, and they really get their panties in a wad. And I'm always getting kicked off, and I have to make a new name, and it's brutal.
Yeah,
and they're wrong.
Yeah, it's almost like saying their crap don't stink.
I was about to say the same thing. Their poop don't stink, but you know.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Here on GrokTALK, we have crap, we have poop, we have monster trucks. Okay. We have come pretty close to the end of this segment.
Good.
Things are deteriorating.
GrokTALK.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The 603 Alliance held its second training seminar on Tuesday, August 11, 2015 at St. Anselm's Institute of Politics, and despite the heavy storms throughout the area, the turnout was fantastic. After introductions and a brief overview of who the 603 Alliance and CVL New Hampshire LLC are, the training focused on the first in the state 603 Grassroots Presidential Caucus to be held on Saturday, October 17, 2015 at the Hopkinton Fairgrounds. Procedures for the caucus were discussed, and a call to action for volunteers to help on event day was met with great enthusiasm. Almost everyone volunteered to help, and thanks to our wonderful friends from Massachusetts who have offered their assistance as caucus marshals. If you could not make the training seminar this week and would like to volunteer your time, please download the GPS Caucus sign-up form available at 603alliance.org. There are instructions on the site for where to send the form.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
Thanks again to Rick Olson for coming in and spending some time with us this morning, talking about guns and bag searches and all kinds of stuff. So, but it's time to move on. But before we do that, I got to see what I just kicked with my foot under the table. please check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for Granite Grok. And, of course, we'd like to thank the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com for helping make the show possible, and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, Ed Nail and the gang, working on vote fraud and municipal government and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So check out cnht.org to see what they do. Give them a donation. Help them out. Give us a donation. And we're happy to take your money. We'll put it right back into the program. But time to move forward. I gotta find the right buttons. Cause how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How are
Emily
you?
Sandblade has joined us this morning.
And she's wearing a high-fashion T-shirt.
Yes, Milton Friedman on it.
It has an old political figure on it, and it's not Che, it's Milton Friedman.
It's just as good as Che.
Way better.
It's way better. It's way better. So,
He murders failed ideologies. Not
Not sure I would have put it quite that way there, Mike.
That's rather poetic.
Yes, it is. We'll have to capture that and share it again and again and again. So, also on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and now streaming live on the RockNHCR.com. So you have an event coming up.
Yes, we do.
Tomorrow?
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
We're doing a big barbecue. We're doing it at LeMay's, which is one of the best butchers in New Hampshire. And they will have very good quality food, and so we've decided that we really want to go with a class act with them. Mm-hmm. We're going to have Carly Fiorina speak, and we're going to have other events as well.
Cool. And this is at Goffstown.
It's at Goffstown. LeMay's is in Goffstown. It's at 116 Daniel Plummer Road in Goffstown, and they have really big and very grassy picnic areas. And so there will be plenty of space for everybody to walk around and enjoy barbecue. Several presidential candidates will have their people out there at tables, and they'll be handing out information to people and discussing any issues people want to bring up. But the big event, of course, is Carly Fiorina is going to give a talk during that time and answer all the questions people come up with. And if Goffstown GOP attendees are typical of past events, they will ask lots of good, hard questions.
Oh, absolutely. And, one of the things that has impressed me, early on we did have some time to interview her. She came on by phone to GrokTALK. But since I was impressed by how she handled herself, knowing that she wasn't as good during her Senate run against Barbara Boxer in California, but she increasingly is getting better and better and better every time I see her or hear her talk. Especially when she's on what I would call hostile media on the liberal shows. And she very often is sort of like a more erudite Chris Christie, where Chris Christie, as we were talking about with Rick, has this absolute bluster, take no prisoners kind of approach. She has a take no prisoners kind of approach, but it's more like instead of the blunderbuss that Chris Christie has, she's got the little stiletto knife that as she's talking to the interviewer, they don't know she's cutting them to ribbons.
Well, she is getting quite good at it, but one of the things that I just wrote my intro for her last night. And one of the things I point out is that among presidential candidates, what we have to pick is somebody who isn't just a good campaigner, because that's not a skill that has anything to do with running the office. Hardly at all. There's almost no overlap in skills. We
know that for certain.
Well,
after the last
for instance, Barack Obama was a very good campaigner and very well packaged. And we can see that his skills at being president are rather poor. And so what happens is I am urging people that when you look at these candidates, don't consider just the glitz and the packaging. Look and see what their background is, what they bring to the table, who they're bringing to the table as part of their team, and take a look, see, figure out what their principles are about, figure out if they've been stable in those principles, and figure out is this person going to be effective in the job, and are they going to bring good principles to that job? And that's what's really, really important. And people can't see that through all the campaign glitter because, the whole idea is to dazzle you. Mm-hmm. This is a Madison Avenue packaging type of thing that goes on. And yet it's what's absolutely critical to being an effective and good president. And that's why, the more that television and Madison Avenue has been involved with campaigns, the worse we've tended to generally get as far as presidents go. And I think Ronald Reagan was probably our last halfway decent president, at least. And since then, the stuff we've been sold has just been, well, poor.
Hasn't been very good.
Exactly.
I'm going to take a little bit of an exception to what you said, because I differ on the opinion of President Obama. When you measure him against the typical goals that Americans have, yes, he has been a lousy president. However, when you measure him against the goals of the socialist left, he has been exceedingly effective. He promised to fundamentally transform the United States, and I think in the 8 years, they have done exactly that. They've had plans that they have laid up for years, and we all used to remark in the beginning of his administration, how are they coming up with all this stuff so quickly on so many fronts? And you have seen that. I mean, whoever thought that a president was going to bankrupt an energy sector, an entire industry, that they were going to nationalize student loans, that they would nationalize health care, and you go on and on and on. So while we think he's a failed president, he has actually been exceedingly effective, not necessarily himself, but as you said, all the people he brought in around him. Whoever thought that a close presidential advisor was going to sing the praises of Mao Zedong?
Oh, I know.
I mean, Obama, I think, he's basically disengaged and golfing, but in between that, he pushes his agenda and then stays hands off. He's not really interested in what happens under the hood. He demagogues and lets the minions carry it out.
He's got his apparatchiks and all that stuff. He's got all the people to do that work. He's just the front guy on the band. He sings the song and everybody else plays the instruments. That's really what it is.
Well, it is, but in a way, he did give us what he promised, which is hope and change. We're all hoping this will change.
Yeah.
Well, it is now. So going back to the other candidates, the other thing that you brought up is the people that they surround themselves with, and also, will they hew to their campaign promises? We've been burnt by supporting different candidates here in New Hampshire. And I'll bring Frank Ginta up, because when he first ran to go to Congress, I mean, he was saying all the right things. He made all the right promises. And when he went to D.C., it didn't happen. So since Fiorina is coming to your soiree, as it were, what's your guesses on her doing what she says? Will she walk the talk from what you have seen so far?
I think she has the capability to do so. I actually am familiar with her from way back, because back in the 90s, before she went over to Hewlett-Packard, she was at Lucent. Mm-hmm. And she was an extremely competent manager at Lucent, and she was pretty much the person who steered or rolled out the IPO for Lucent. And I actually invested in Lucent at the time, and I did fairly well with it. I have no complaints at all there. And so I started watching her because she was really quite phenomenal in that. And then she went over to Hewlett-Packard. She put in a lot of changes, and she was very criticized for that. She was highly criticized for the merger that Hewlett-Packard made with Compaq Computer, but Hewlett-Packard was in the position at the time where they really had to acquire an up and growing, sector of the technology industry, because they were in the situation where their HP equipment, their lab equipment and scientific equipment, was its solid sales but not growing rapidly. They own the market in printers. HP printers were among the very best that were out
Still
there.
Are.
Very well engineered, beautiful quality printers. I had one that worked like a workhorse, a laser printer that worked for 16 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insanely good.
The infamous LaserJet 5.
That one, exactly.
Yep.
That's the one I had, a 5MP.
Yep.
Okay, I loved that printer to death, and I kept it to death. And it just mechanically, eventually, it didn't help the fact that it fell off my table once and things like that. Anyway, these were good sectors that HP was in. They were good, steady, solid business things, but HP needed to grow. So Carly actually put them on a road to growth, and time has proven that she did a very good job of it over the long run.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and that's why I turned your mic off, Mike, because we're going to take a break because you didn't see me do this.
I was watching Emily, that's why.
Oh, yeah, you were watching Emily. All right, I'll buy it. Okay, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
Rock Talk. Rock Talk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Emily Sandblade has joined us. Figure out which button I'm supposed to push. iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and TheRockNHCR.com. Check us out at GraniteGrok.com, where we stream live always. Sometimes a little later than we're supposed to, but
we get it right eventually.
We get it right eventually. It's there.
So Emily, you were on an important track there about Carly and the brouhaha at HP. So you're a fan both of HP and also you're in high tech yourself. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Now there's a lot of people in high tech that say, "Oh, Fiorina, terrible. She trashed Lucent. She trashed HP." What you're telling us is the other half of the story, which is what I've been coming to learn, is that you got to go through some turmoil to prepare for renewed growth.
Skip made a great point, actually. Was it last week? Or maybe, where were we? You were talking about how all those tech companies that were struggling at that time period, many of whom you worked for, and during this time period,
are gone.
Carly restructured HP in a way that allowed it to survive where all these other companies were just dropping like flies.
Honeywell Information Systems, Digital Equipment.
They're gone.
Wang Labs.
They're gone.
The entire workstation industry got eaten alive by the PCs.
Even Sun Microsystems got soaked up.
Yeah, I was a fan of Apollo. I actually bought some of Apollo Workstation's equipment. I mean, one after another after another. It wiped out entire industries. They peaked, and they peaked fast. I mean, everybody went like, oh my gosh, look how powerful these things are. And here comes the little itty-bitty PC doing, 70% at the high end of what these high-end workstations could do, but they were doing it for 10 to 20% of the cost.
Absolutely.
My famous story is that my first day at Digital Equipment, I was asked, what do you want on your desktop? Do you want a terminal or a PC? And I said, oh, no, what kind of, do you want a workstation or a terminal? I said, well, I'd rather have a PC. And the guy looked at me and said, what the heck would you want a PC for? And I went, I may have just made the wrong decision. And 4.5 years later, I found out, indeed I had. It's just one of those deals.
Anyway, one of the interesting things that we can take away from this is she had to end up going in and shaking up the HP culture. The HP culture, in some ways, was a real good culture because they had the idea that if times got lean, you didn't fire anybody. You held on to everybody you could, but she changed the culture to be more performance-oriented. And that does mean that occasionally you fire somebody. And if you have to lay people off in order to save the company, you do that. And that's just the economic reality. And the HP was one of the last holdouts on that policy. And when she came in, they were still holding out on that. And she got to where she streamlined their back office operations tremendously. And that ran into some real hostility, partly because, she got rid of people who didn't need to be there. And she became much more performance and function-oriented in the company. And altogether, she ended up cutting the workforce after the Compaq Hewlett-Packard merger by about 20% to get rid of the overlap and the excess.
Which makes a whole lot of sense. So, HP was in PCs before it bought Compaq. However, aside from a few high-end workstations, most of what HP made, people weren't buying.
Well, they weren't, because they were very expensive and they weren't really good bang for the buck. And Compaq was a large gulp. I mean, the merger was something like $25 billion merger. I mean, it was huge.
At that time, it was.
At that time. At that time, it was the largest tech merger that had occurred up to that point.
And people think Compaq and PCs, but that really wasn't the whole of the story, because before that, Compaq had swallowed Tandem, which included not only a computing company but also Unger and Bass, the networking company.
Oh yes.
So when they bought Compaq, they got a whole range of computers of different capabilities and a networking company that they didn't have before.
Yes, they did indeed. And one of the interesting things that happened was Compaq itself was the second largest PC company in the world at that point. Just next to Dell. And so they were very, very, very substantial acquisition, and as a result, it did take a while to get the two companies joined and working together. It really did. And during that period, a lot of people were very, very frightened by that merger and the size of it, and Fiorina was confident enough to push it through, but it was at significant cost to herself, of course.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a very, very good choice for Hewlett-Packard, and in the long run, Hewlett-Packard has done very well as a result.
Well, Hewlett-Packard is still with us. IBM is still with us, but they remake themselves periodically in order to stay with us. They don't just cruise along doing mainframes. And Dell is still with us, and they keep changing focus in order to keep relevant as well.
Yes, but this all exhibits in Fiorina, and I'm not a Fiorina campaign supporter per se, because number one, as chair of the Goffstown GOP, I can't endorse anybody in the primary. But number two is that I still am trying to make a decision myself who I support in the election, because there's a lot of choices out there this year.
Right.
You think?
Yeah.
Some of them are actually pretty good.
There are. And, we admire how Fiorina's been feisty on the trail, but we're also aware of some of the baggage. What we're trying to do is comb through that and figure out whether this is, in fact, the candidate that she claims to be, which is not exactly the second coming of Margaret Thatcher, but she's trying to get close.
I think in some ways, in a number of ways, she possesses a lot of the characteristics that I'm looking for in a candidate. She's definitely made it onto my short list because of that. But I think that she's capable of making the decisions. I don't think she's the world's best campaigner, although, as you say, she's improving. But also, I think that she would make a very good manager, in the presidency. And frankly, I think having a good manager who's pretty good about her principles, and she hasn't gone around flip-flopping on things like other people have, I think she could make a pretty decent president.
You bring out a point. There's two camps about the next president: manager versus aspirational. What do you think the nation needs right now? A good, competent manager that makes the trains run on time and the gears of the federal government work? Or do you need somebody that can do that to some degree, but give a message of, we've got a brighter tomorrow coming up and we can do that?
You need both. There's no question about that, because policy ultimately dictates what gets done, and then capability dictates whether it gets done or not.
Right, and good managers hire up, which is to say they don't always choose people less capable than themselves. They choose people more capable themselves to carry out the important functions while they project the vision.
And, absolutely.
And Reagan did that. Nobody would say that Reagan was the guy that managed everything. Hell, that was the last thing he wanted to do. Reagan set the tone and the vision.
Well, in this case, we're looking at this old saying of first-rate managers hire first-rate people and second-rate managers hire third-rate people.
Mm-hmm.
And you really want someone who knows how to hire first-rate people. And one of the things I look for is how much experience and how many contacts and what kind of environment that person has moved in their lives, and do they have a lot of access and a lot of contact and a lot of knowledge of non-political capable people, or are they just going to bring in just people from the political class? We've seen this current president has just drawn people almost entirely from the political class, and that's a terrible mistake.
But not just this president. The last two or the last three have done that. They brought in, party hacks, party consultants, senators, people that have been around and around. Even Reagan to some extent, but there again, the party pushed some of those on him.
I'm actually a little surprised by what you said, Emily, because I look at people like Carly Fiorina and I look at Donald Trump. With Obama, it wasn't just the political class. He brought in the advocacy class, which could be seen as either part of the political class or an adjunct, a distant, not a distant cousin, but a cousin of the political class, because they're working it the same way. What kind of effects do you think you would see if, say, for instance, the three non-politicos with Carson, Fiorina, and Trump, what kind of administrative staffing do you think he'd do, or they would do? You opened up the Pandora's box.
That's a huge Pandora's box, too.
And you got 3 minutes.
You got about a minute, actually. I have 3 minutes. You have about 60 seconds.
There's no question in my mind that the people who have some experience, at least some experience outside the political sector, a reasonable amount of experience, and I would like to set that as maybe half your life experience outside the political sector. You don't need to bring in the advocacy class per se, but the advocacy class is actually what I consider to be the enablers of the political class. They're allowing the political class to go ahead and do the kinds of sometimes horrible things that they do, and to tilt the balance on everything, even the most innocuous things, into a bad direction.
I'm going to have to cut you off because we got to go. We got to call our next guest, and I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and hope we can have you back again soon. All righty. All right. Thank you so much, Emily. All right. Coming up, John Lieber, Chief Economist for Thumbtack.com. He has some experience with AEI. He's been involved with government, and he is going to talk to us about Thumbtack.com's small business survey. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, The Rock, NHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK. GrokTALk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, this is GrokTALK. Trying to skip putting on his microphone, and I didn't have it turned down. Sorry about that. Hey, you're all tied up. Nice job. Welcome back to GrokTALK, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Coming to you live on several locations and post-production in the podcast form on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio.
Ustream and YouTube.
Ustream and YouTube, and at GraniteGrok.com, where you will hear all kinds of stuff, including our earlier guest today, Londonderry Fishing Game Club President Rick Olson. Emily Sandblade was here to talk about some interesting things, and we're going to keep the ball rolling with our next guest, John Lieber, who is the chief economist at Thumbtack.com. He has a very impressive resume, including the American Enterprise Institute and a whole bunch of stuff as a consultant for government. Good morning, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Great. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Why don't you give our listeners just a brief background on you? I touched on two things maybe, and then let's talk about Thumbtack.com and the Small Business Survey.
Cool. Yeah, so just briefly about me, I was a government policy advisor for many years before I moved back home to the great state of California to work for this company called Thumbtack. And what Thumbtack does is connects people to small business service providers, so people who are looking for dog walkers to plumbers to electricians to math tutors. And since we have this network of small businesses, what we do is we ask them how they feel about their government every year. And so we've done this now for 4 years running. And this year, the state of New Hampshire was the number 2 state for small business in our survey.
It looks pretty good. We got an A+. I'm looking at it. It looks really pretty. Now, I know this is limited, obviously, to the number of small businesses that you have associated with Thumbtack, but I think that maybe those are the best people to talk to, because these are probably people who really are having some of the smallest businesses and are really, sensitive to changes in government policy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think this is a population of very small service providers, so 90% have 5 or fewer employees, and I think these are people who are either just starting out on their own or maybe have been in business for several years for themselves, but they're not making a ton of profit, they're not raking in cash. These aren't going to be people who are getting exceptionally wealthy. These are people who are making a living by running a small business. And so these small changes in policy can make a huge difference for them. They don't have a lot of help complying with the rules. They don't have like a team of lawyers that can help them understand where to find, how to renew their license or how to do their taxes. So it's a group that is very independent and where government regulations can really make a big difference to their success or not.
Now, you have like over 18,000 participating in the national survey. What would you say are the top 3, 4, 5 things that they talk about when they complete the surveys that have the most impact on their business?
So we ask a general question, how friendly is your government for small business? And then we look at the other factors we ask about, and we try to determine which of those factors has the biggest effect on their answer to that question about how friendly the business is. So the goal of the survey is really to understand from their own perspective what makes for a friendly state or local government. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing we found this year was actually a little surprising to me. It was the presence of kind of proactive business training programs. So a lot of our businesses are pretty small, pretty isolated businesses, and they really appreciate it when there's either a government or like a civic institution that offers training programs that helps them meet other people in their field, helps them understand how to find new customers or how to run their business better. And that was actually the number 1 factor this year.
I noticed in New Hampshire we see a quick look at some of the grading. We're in the weeds here in New Hampshire as far as the politics and the taxes and everything else. I mean, we're broadcasting 2-3 blocks from the State House. We have 400 House representatives. We know lots of them. We've met all of our congressional delegation pretty much, unless they were the Democrat side, because they don't want to talk to us for some reason because we're conservatives. But
they know us all by our first names.
They all know us by first name. They know who we are. They respond to the things that we do. So we're very interfaced with our government, and I can understand that, and so as a result, we talk to to business leaders in varying degrees, and they talk about the business tax situation in New Hampshire, which is, we rely heavily on business taxes, and there is licensing, although it's not nearly as bad as we'd like to think it is, and certainly, a lot of regulatory issues, but there's no sales tax, and the income tax is embedded in kind of into the business tax formula. But the things that people were excited about here were training opportunities, where we were graded as B-, and licensing enforcement, which is, I guess, different from licensing. We talk about licensing a lot, but I'm not even sure if I can get into that. And then labor regulations, which I'm honestly not that familiar with. But not everybody is as comfortable with their state government as we are. I mean, we talk to these business leaders. They show up at hearings. They walk into the State House. They talk to one of their 400 House reps, or they know their senator. And it's not like that in every state. So, I don't know. I'm not even sure where I'm going with this. I lost my train of thought on the way.
Well, let me see if I can help. That's interesting. I think that's not really the case for a lot of small business owners across most of the country, that they have a deep familiarity with the political process or the politicians that help make the rules. So you guys are really fortunate in that sense, because your lawmakers are hearing directly from people on a constant basis about what the big hassles are with them. And that's just not the case. Like in a big state like California or even Florida, New York, these people just don't have access. So this is a group of people who aren't frequently heard from. They don't have like a trade organization speaking for them. And it's just very difficult for them to get their voices heard, which is why it's one of the cool things about this survey is that we're offering a chance for these voices to be amplified. You brought up licensing, and that's actually one of the biggest issues for our professionals, because a lot of them are in fields where they're required to hold a license, and the state governing board or sometimes the county regulations make it very difficult to get and maintain that license. And that's actually such a big issue for our pros that it ranks higher than tax rates when you ask them about what makes for a friendly government. The presence and difficulty of licensing rules is nationally one of the biggest things that can really either frustrate or help government become friendlier to small business.
With this president administration, this is Skip, by the way, and thanks for coming on the show. It's certainly the mission of this administration to, and I've been saying this for a while, almost copy what was done in Italy in the 1930s, where they certainly don't want to necessarily own the means of productions, but they have certainly ratcheted down, just thousands, hundreds of thousands of regulations, to the point where some industries and certainly some businesses are becoming nothing more than public utilities at the behest of the government. Is this something that you are noticing? They've been doing it at the large end mostly, but are you seeing this as a growing influence and a growing concern at the low end with these small businesses?
So what we found is that for the most part, our businesses aren't really subject to federal regulation. The federal government kind of leaves them alone, and they're just too small to pop on the radar. There's certain cases where there's some environmental rules somebody has to follow. If they're in junk hauling or interstate moving or something like that, there are a handful of federal regulations that affect them. But really, these businesses are on such a scale that state and local rules that really apply. One thing I will say this administration did recently is they released a really terrific paper on the effects that professional licensure has on small business and business generally, and they made some really great recommendations for reform. Acknowledging that there's not a lot they can do at the federal level, they kind of outline some best practices at the state and local level that could be followed to help make licensing easier and less burdensome for small businesses.
One of the things that I'm curious about, since most doctors, or up until the Obama administration and Obamacare, many doctors had their own practices, maybe a very small group practice, but we're seeing their elimination from the marketplace because of the federal regulations, and that they are being absorbed by either larger practices or, in most of the cases, by hospitals or hospital chains. And do you see this possibility happening now in the energy field, where some of these smaller wildcatters or some other manufacturers are going to get rolled up because they're about to do in the energy sector what they did in the healthcare sector?
Oh, that's a great question, and we don't directly deal with a lot of energy producers because we are primarily service marketplace.
Okay.
However, my understanding of the situation with the wildcat, as you talked about, is it's a pretty precarious business with a lot of risk involved in it,
right.
And anything from some new government regulation that wants to limit fracking to the Saudis deciding to keep the price of oil low in the OPEC cartel could really affect these guys' livelihoods. So I'm sure that there's a deep sensitivity to any new regulation that comes out from the federal government there.
Do you see anything? I know you just talked about the report from the federal government about licensing at the state level, just kind of as a guideline. And I think I've seen that report. I may have written about it at watchdog.org. I'm trying to remember. So many blog posts, so little time. Have you heard of any response at the state level? Like I know, obviously, the survey you are surveying businesses who are reacting to situations at the state level. But as an economist and somebody who's been involved in government, have you heard of any states in particular that are really trying to work on the problem of excessive licensing?
I think it's funny you ask. It's hard. I think it's really hard. There's definitely an interest at the state level. There's certainly an interest amongst kind of policymakers at the federal level in doing something about this issue, as there's a growing recognition of what a burden it is on middle-class business owners who are being kept out of professions because of these licensing rules. But when it comes down to the rubber on the road at the state level, these licensed bodies can become their own little protectorates, where they sort of protect the people who are in the cartel and exclude those who are not. So it's very difficult at the state and even the local level to try to reform these. I know one example is that in your neighboring state of Maine, there's a body that was formed maybe a decade or so ago that kind of weighs the costs and benefits of new regulations, and that has slowed down the flood of new licenses. It hasn't really done a lot to re-examine the old ones yet, and there's a couple other examples inside that report from the White House of states that are attempting at least to try to deal with this problem.
Right, and the regulations cover everything from taxis to hair braiding, and taxi licenses have some merit, but it's caused a closed shop that's attempting to keep competition out, and some of the cosmetic trades really make very little sense. Either the people get a good reputation or they don't.
Yeah, there's this other model that I'm a big fan of, where instead of requiring a license, you offer a professional certification. So instead of saying, in order to practice, profession X in this state, you have to have this license. It says, if you practice profession X, you are certified that you are a quality provider. And that is more like a signal to the consumer that this is a good person. Online reviews can often fill the same function, where you say, I need to hire a plumber. Plumbers need to be licensed for certain things, but to snake a drain or unclog a sink or something like that, you really don't need a license for that kind of thing. But this guy's certified in a certain way, or he's got enough reviews online to tell me he's a legit provider. So there's actually quite a number of alternatives to professional licensing. And with all the new technology that's out there today, there's way more transparency in the service industry than there ever was in the past. So these kind of models of licensing are really outdated for a large number of professions.
I've got a question that we may have to get the question out and then get the answer after the break. My wife and I ran a daycare center, very small. We were in that middle trough where you really don't want to be, where the profitability was like 1 or 2 kids per day type of deal. But I saw firsthand when you had a regulatory environment from the state, because daycare is highly regulated, that when they want to be helpful to help you be better, it was very helpful. And then the administration changed, the politics changed, and then they were out to get you, to where one of my favorite stories is I got dinged for not having a temperature gauge in a freezer that I wasn't using. So the question comes up, do you see any kind of movement within the states to go from take all prisoners possible, or we're going to have a mentorship kind of deal? Do you see any kind of movement between those two, from the take every prisoner we can get to more of a here's the regulations, let's help you try to meet those?
I mean, that would be, I think it kind of depends on the administration, right? So a lot of this stuff is enforcement especially, is at the discretion of whomever's in charge. And a lot of time, enforcement can come just because, the bureaucracy is moving and that's just what it does, so they enforce things like that. But a lot of times some governments will come in and they'll make a conscious choice to not go after rinky-dink little violations like that. And I think that's kind of the discretion that we rely on to keep our government functioning. There's so many rules out there that you really just need someone who understands in office, who's willing to kind of say, this is what we actually think is really important for safety and these things are not. But I'm unaware of a national movement that would encapsulate, that would help there. But it certainly, I think just talking about these stories, getting them out there, making sure people are aware of the kind of tiny little things that can trip you up and how hard it is to run a business today is a really important part of kind of our mission here. I think it's really important that we keep talking about it so people know what's going on.
All right, John, hang on the line. We're going to take a really short break. We'll be right back in just a little over a minute. Everybody stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right, it's GrokTALK. We have Chief Economist John Lieber on the phone from Thumbtack.com. Thumbtack's a great organization. I've actually used them. I needed to get the power connector in the back of my laptop fixed, the one that was making the sound worse.
Yes.
The buzzing noise that we were hearing on the air. And I actually used Thumbtack. And I found a guy in Florida who would do it cheap and fast. And I sent it out on a Tuesday morning, and I had it back before the show on Saturday. So it's great service. I think that people are used to some of the other companies that they've heard of that are a little bit more. They've been around longer. But if you need something done locally, it's a great place to reach out and just put up a little. Say, hey, you stick a Thumbtack. You go, I need this service in this area, and anybody who's nearby who's willing to do it will reach out to you and start to negotiate the terms of the service and so on and so forth. So it's very useful, and it's nice to see that they're taking this opportunity to get all these small business owners, because a lot of them are. The guy that I used, this is what he does. I don't know if it's his full-time job or if he just does it on the side, but he makes a living. It supplements his income. So I think a lot of the people that we're talking about here as far as the survey goes are folks just like that. Does that sound about right, John?
Absolutely, yeah. What I think is most interesting about the service providers you see on Thumbtack is we have, so a lot of them are established businesses. About 45% have been in business for 5 years or more. But there's also a lot of folks who maybe that guy, he works in the IT department of a small company in Florida, and he wants to start off on his own, but he doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know where to find customers. He doesn't know where to get started. So come to Thumbtack, suddenly people start sending him jobs, and suddenly the dream of being a business owner, working for himself, doesn't seem that far away. So what I really love about the service is our ability to kind of help people get started on their own, realize their dreams, do their own thing. And, these are skilled professionals. These are people who have a skill they're very good at, and they're able to share that with their community. And it's really, I think it's fantastic to be able to empower people to have that kind of opportunity in their lives.
John, what has been your rate of growth year over year over the last few years? With tens of thousands of businesses, you had to start off somewhere small. But how fast is your particular business growing as far as expanding this marketplace you're talking about?
We're growing pretty fast. I can't get into the specific numbers. I believe we have over 1 million people signed up on the site, professionals, and we have about 150,000 active small businesses on the platform a month. So we have a lot of people coming through and using this. And our request growth is growing as well. So we've got a lot of new people coming through, discovering the service and meeting new small business owners.
So, would you describe your growth rate at 5% a year, 10% a year, or is there any kind of just to get a sense of how much this service is needed? Because certainly Steve was happy to use it.
Yeah, it's fast. We think it's about nationally. We think that the areas that we cover are about a $700 billion market. So it's a big marketplace. You see a lot of other providers getting into the space. Amazon's got a competitor. Google's trying to launch a competitor. Angie's List has been here for a very, very long time. Yelp is in the local service rating. So there's a lot of businesses that are in a similar space, but no one does exactly what we do, which is match you directly with professionals who can help you get your jobs done.
Is anybody else doing small business surveys?
Good question. Well, there's a couple established ones that are out there, but they're mostly from trade organizations. So the National Federation of Independent Businesses does a survey every month where they kind of take a pulse of the economic environment for small businesses. A lot of those businesses tend to be larger businesses, though, and they'll be kind of more established in retail and manufacturing, whereas we focus almost exclusively on service businesses.
Okay. Is there anything? I know you do the survey. What have we talked about? We talked about licensing. We've talked about that's important. What else is really big for these small business owners? Obviously, they're not interfacing with government, as we've discussed, and you did say licensing. What would you say is next as far as concerns them?
Well, I'll tell you something that surprised me that was small, which is tax rates. So we actually asked about the effect of, basically asked, how do you feel about the tax burden that you pay? And for the most part, a majority of people tell us that they're pretty comfortable with the tax rate they pay. And when we look at how the tax rate affects their perceptions of their local government, it turns out it's not a very big factor at all. And what's a much bigger factor is the difficulty in understanding complying with those tax rules. And so what that leads us to conclude is that the attention paid to tax rates may be a little oversized, because what actually matters is sort of the time cost and difficulty in complying and understanding what the tax rules are. And, at first that really surprised me, but then I thought about it a little bit, and it seems like, the tax is just money out of the pocket, and people will pay that. They understand that paying taxes is part of the cost of doing business. They may not be happy about it. They may want taxes to be lower, but it's just something they kind of accept. But what becomes really frustrating is when you have to spend, a week around tax time, sitting around the table, looking at all your expenses, trying to make everything add up and understand what the rules are. If you're in a state where they have a sales tax on services, you've got to try to comply with that. And it can become a real burden on these small business owners who, again, aren't people with a ton of resources. They don't have an accounting department. Maybe they have an outside accountant, or maybe they use Quicken or TurboTax or something like that. But every hour they have to spend in this process is a real drag on them. It's a time they're not spent building their business. They're not helping a client out, and they're not earning a living for their family. So it's a really this kind of time cost is a real burden for them.
Well, I work for a software manufacturing company that deals with small to almost really huge manufacturing firms, and I'll tell you, it's a pain even for us to try to keep up with all the tax laws. And a lot of our customers, we have interfaced with companies who do nothing but tax compliance, so that when they get ready to generate their invoices, all of their numbers for a particular invoice, for instance, go out to the cloud where they're computed, because they're doing business all over the places. And when you look at the federal taxes, the state level taxes, the county level, the local level in some cases, the compliance of all that stuff is just crazy. And when I first started there and learned about this, I went, this is absolutely nuts. And then as a political blogger, our cost of compliance altogether is approaching $2 trillion a year, which compliance is just as bad as the taxes.
Yeah, in some ways it's worse, because it's not like, at least taxes, you tax me, you take my income, and you give it to somebody else, fine, they spend the money. This is just sunk cost. This is just money that's taken away, from productivity. It's just taken away from people who are creating things and given to people who help us deal with complexity, like lawyers and accountants. And it's just a deadweight loss for society that serves no productive good. So in a lot of ways, it's worse than the money out of pocket.
Now, one of the funny stories that I haven't yet written about was that Trump has basically said, I'm going to make a flat tax and get rid of a couple of the outside tax preparers. And I can't remember which one he was talking about, but some fool wrote a post. He's going to get rid of 80,000 jobs. How can he call himself a job creator when all of these people who help individuals do their taxes, they're all going to lose their jobs? And I'm thinking, this person has no idea what it takes.
Free up a lot of money.
Yeah, free up a lot of money.
Destruction. People put to better use.
Yeah, this is nothing more than government saying you have to have these parasites, and I use that word judiciously and purposefully, that this is a weight against the economy that is totally government imposed versus, this shouldn't be here. So my personal feeling is if they all went away, all these tax preparers, I'd be a happy camper. But just for political purposes, they're trying to slam some of these people saying a flat tax, the fair tax, or what have you, which reduces your income tax and business tax to a postcard almost.
Yeah, I'd rather my tax preparer wasn't preparing taxes, but was in fact helping small businesses with their accounts. So there were more businesses open and less people having to do taxes. I don't necessarily call the people at H&R Block parasites, for example, unless I was to find that the management of H&R Block was lobbying for more tax complexity to increase their revenue.
They actually did with Obamacare, believe it or not. But John, what's your take on that type of small story, given that we are in the silly season for the presidential election?
In terms of tax reform and how to fix the system?
Well, and the job marketplace that has grown up because the government has distorted the marketplace, if you want to call it that, for gathering taxes.
You're going to have to answer it in a minute.
Sure. I'll give my quick answer about which actually has to do with automation, which is kind of an interesting thing. If you think about kind of traditional tax preparers for small businesses, they were these accountants, they were professionals, they had a shingle, they hung out, they wore green eye shades, they were this kind of traditional view of an accountant. But technology has advanced so far that a lot of the traditional accounting practices can now be done with a software package, like the one you're talking about. So when you think about these jobs in the accounting world, you're starting to see a destruction of sort of these middle-class professional jobs and moving it towards these people who are just basically running software tools. And this is a good example of how software is kind of moving its way up the value chain in society and displacing a lot of workers today. So when you think about the jobs that are being lost because of tax compliance, if you were to simplify the system, they may not be the jobs that you think they are. So sort of a tangent, but it's kind of an interesting trend that's happening in the economy today.
Well, John, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for getting up early and spending some time with us. I know you're in California. You're in California, right?
I'm in California, yep.
All right. Well, it's still early there, so enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Great, guys. Thanks so much for talking. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That was John Lieber, Chief Economist, Thumbtack.com, doing a little chatting about some small business stuff. This is GrokTALK. We'll be back next week with at least Rick Olson. We already know that. And we look forward to talking to you again. Make sure you tune in. Check out the podcast, granitegrok.com. We're there every day. And you guys have a great weekend.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.